People called him a wolf. He was definitely a loner, a nocturnal animal. This characterization would necessarily carry the weight of a ferocious, rapacious creature. He was one of those wolves that refused to stay within the vicinity of his natal pack, or any pack he managed to join forces with along the years. He enjoyed traveling alone, in his quest towards survival. Alone was a public place for him, probably the only place. A conscious decision, part of his temperament and conviction. He had found the place he would ideally reside within the next years, although he knew that the winters there would impact his well-being. The conditions would be punishing, but it would be worth it once his plans would grow into fruition. The estuary was characterized by its shallow waters, the low-lying lands bordering it, and the intense presence of mud floods, the low-lying open beaches and salt marshes. This was the natural location of the military forts, to guard the land, their eternal present, the avant-garde, the edge of the territory. The humidity pierced his bones by night, and during the day he could feel the cold on his skin. The saline breeze made his eyes ache. But there was something soothing about his new home. The red fang forts, their distant silhouettes. Perching solid, yet still menacing on the horizon. They were designed to be the guardians of the territory, now left to rest derelict. They were only approachable by boat, alien islands made out of concrete. They looked like emblems of a dated technology, ancient war machines. These nautical bastions were assembled in the Second World War after the main Blitz, but left in place to hinder later attacks to prevent invaders. Now they were his only shelter, a place to think, to develop alone. The laws said that none amongst men may be alone, for this is the great transgression and the root of all evil. But he had broken many laws. He came from a very advanced and accelerated ordeal where speed and profit were the only currency. He was not invested in anything else. His whole life was a form of arbitrage. Living offshore was a prosperous alternative. The forts were constructed to protect the settlements from the aerial and naval attentions of the war. There were 3 sets of these forts within the estuary. The Nor forts, which were now demolished, the Red Fangs, and the Shivering Sands much further out. 7 protrude from the waters at Red Fangs. Some were untroubled by human intrusion for almost half a century. 5 turrets circled the central command and accommodation block, now his home. Some of the forts had been subjects to different types of squatting during the years. Their history boasted with autonomous projects, semi-illegal activities, and lent their hostile appearance to several sci-fi iconologies. Their size made them ideal antenna platforms. A large antenna could be based on the central tower and guide from the surrounding towers. After 1964, a series of pirate radio stations settled in the forts. During the pirate era, the authority of the port complained that its monitoring radio links were being disrupted by the nearby transmitters. One of the station's managing directors was an ex-spy and a thriller writer, a role model from his youth he had now forgotten or rather overcame. In 1965, Danger Man episode was partly filmed at the Red Fangs. The Red Fangs were also used for the 1968 Doctor Who serial, in which the complex stood in for North Sea gas refinery besieged by an intelligent seaweed creature. In order to prevent further pirate broadcasting, a team of Royal Engineers laid 2,200 pounds of explosive charges on one of the forts. The charges were detonated, destroying the entire superstructure and most of the concrete legs above the waterline. Since 1976, one of the forts has been occupied by a family who claimed that it was an independent sovereign state. In August 2005, a white male artist spent 6 weeks alone in one of the forts. an artistic exploration of isolation, investigating how one's experience of time changes in isolation, and what creative contemplation means in a 21st century context, he claimed in one of his blogs. More recently, the Prodigy filmed their Invaders Must Die video on the Red Fangs. Shortly after that, a sea diving challenge sponsored by Red Bull took place there. Now, it was his turn to make his mark in the unloved, rusty, stagnant structures. A man alone vying the harsh conditions establishing his solo project. He did not laugh as his eyes stopped in awareness of the ocean around him, the buried fibre optic cable lines running underneath the surface around the Red Fangs connecting the hemispheres. His face was like a law of nature, a thing one could not question, alter or implore. His gaze was that of an executioner or a saint. He remembered when, to his disappointment, he had discovered that those he looked up to didn't play by the old rules. He recalled the day that he had discovered that, within the practice of hot firms, the use of hidden order types allowed high-frequency clients to have their orders at the top of the limit order books to a much greater portion of the time. He had discovered this while working at a qualitative fund called War Machines, which suddenly turned from being highly profitable to losing money daily. After consulting with tech and sales from one of the exchanges, he learned that this new order type had been developed by them, with the help of some high-frequency trading clientele. When his firm started using this order type, they were back to profiting. He felt beaten, not because this order type was kept secret from him, but because he didn't think of pushing a similar order type first. The secret order type was generating the profit, giving a speed priority to the elite clientele. The firm was called out on using it. He left never to return again or appear as a strategist to the public. He withdrew himself and decided to stay off-grid and low-key, to pull an even greater extortion. Diving in the dark pools of anonymity, he would now try to use all of the knowledge he was equipped with to fire back at the main web. He would attempt to intervene to the existing net, to send priority order types back to the main exchange, and use the Red Fang forts as his own space, strategically hidden to create his own hardware, a pirated infrastructure designed to hijack the existing structures. His orders would always have priority. His entrepreneurial advantage was his intellect. He would design powerful supercomputer machines within the forts that couldn't be traced. He would use the ultra-fast optic fiber data connection lines underneath the forts to emit signals and order types that would give him the ultimate priority. One winter had passed, and he was still struggling to build his computers inside the Red Fang forts, but he was almost ready. He had blocked all the windows. If anything happened to the forts, it would risk not being able to execute trades. It would result to the loss of a tremendous amount of money. His home now, the forts had triple everything. Triple power utility feeds coming in, triple cooling systems, triple computers. If something were to break, he could go instantly to the second device. He needed triple of everything. Every fort was a unit, identical to the other forts. He couldn't risk the cost of downtime. If trading operations were lost for seconds, it would be a disaster. His goal was to minimize, if not eliminate, any risk of failure. In a few days, he would be ready to start trading. The night was dawning. In the twilight, he saw the dark cloud cover surrounding the forts. He could feel his blood rushing through his arteries. His breathing accelerated. It was time. His ears were ringing. He suddenly heard a sharp, loud sound. They were coming from the outside. He had to walk on one of the external platforms to see what was going on, as he had blocked all the windows. It had been a really long since he had left the fort interiors. The sunlight slowly rising was too bright for his eye. His vision faded, and the heat and the first smell of spring made him feel faint. He looked pale and gaunt. As he walked around trying to approach the noises, he saw a massive derrick on a boat approaching. The workers' voices were loud. It was an invasion. At that moment, everything had to be called off. He had to burn everything down, not to be discovered. He thought about God. God, a being whose only definition is that he is beyond man's power to conceive.